Welcome to Work Reborn, live from Barcelona, brought to you by Lenovo. Work Reborn is a research series surveying over 600 senior IT leaders worldwide to uncover the key to creating a productive digital workplace. Last report, we talked about using AI to work smarter and stay safer. Now we're moving from AI readiness to AI reality, where technology and human connection are reshaping how we work and thrive in this new era of work, or as we like to call it, Work Reborn. Let's get started. Welcome to the Lenovo Work Reborn podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Do you mind introducing yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Paul Jones. I am the Director of User Technology and Service Management for a global law firm.
Amazing. A global law firm.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of tech security concerns around something as sensitive as cases and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Our business is information.
Right.
You know, the lawyers are working on because it's a global law firm, we have some of the biggest names in technology and banking, manufacturing, and yeah, their data is key. And if that gets out, it could be absolutely detrimental. So security is always critically important for us, data protection especially.
Yeah, I think that this is a really great use case conversation for us to have because something that's really important for me on the podcast is not only to talk about AI and, employee experience and all these words that we throw around, but really trying to get like a practical application and understanding from different tech leaders within different verticals too. So I think we're definitely going to have a great chat about that. But before we do, I wanted to start with just a little bit of a fun icebreaker question for you, because as you know, we are partners with FIFA this year. And I am a huge football fan this year, like just this year, and not because I'm doing this, but genuinely, it just the timing happened well. And what I love to see on the field is like coaches just like on the field going at it, like going ballistic on the pitch or whatever.
Bringing the passion.
Just bringing the passion. And I think you can really differentiate between a coach that's just kind of there and like a really great coach, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think a great coach doesn't just like manage the players, but they really like anticipate what's coming next. They're motivating them and they're adapting the strategy in real time. So I think in many ways, like that's what IT leadership looks like. And especially like an industry like yours, having to anticipate and motivate and like strategize in real time is probably so important. So how do you see your role shifting today from managing technology to more so coaching people through all these changes that we're seeing then?
Yeah, that's a great analogy about the football coach and the ones who are, well, you mentioned like anticipation and seeing what's coming next, right? And if you think about the players on the field are concentrated on that moment. Get the ball in the goal, right? And the coach has to keep the whole field in mind. And that's an interesting connection that you've made with IT leadership, because that's exactly what IT leaders have to be doing today. I mean, that's why we're here at a conference like this, is to understand what's coming, right? Because our teams are on the field right now trying to deliver what they've already been tasked with. And with the rapid change of IT nowadays, especially with AI, things are changing so fast. And our teams are being pulled in a lot of different directions, right? You got fullbacks running up to play forwards and, you know, all of this kind of thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's absolutely critical nowadays for IT leaders to know what's coming more now than ever. And I think it's really important too, is the people aspect more than ever. There's a lot of, I don't want to say fear, but like this worry about AI coming in. And it is a theme. You have heard it in some of the sessions here about AI taking jobs and things like that. And I think it's absolutely critical for the IT leaders to stay in touch with that, stay in touch with the human factor, with the people factor, more than the technology. Of course, you need to know the technology that's coming, but you also have to keep your teams safe, and secure and feeling good about what they're doing moving forward.
Right. For me, if we continue the analogy, it's the legacy playbook has changed, right?
Yeah.
So the way you would make calls and implement different initiatives and strategize is completely different. In your opinion, what are the key parts of that legacy playbook that are different now? That I mean,
Yeah.
other than just AI, like just like from a bird's eye level.
Yeah. I think nowadays there needs to be, as we continue, we've been seeing it happen, which is
Right.
collaboration, right? And this concept of a leader, coming up with the playbooks and telling everybody what to do. That's old school, right?
Right.
That's the old playbook. The new playbook, I think, has to be so much more collaborative. And I'm not a big fan of all these buzzwords, but empowering is a good word. It is. It does send a message, and you need to empower your teams. You need to empower your people, and it's more of a. We always talk about it's a team effort, all the team together. But where's the coach in that team?
Right.
It's not the coach and the team anymore. It's the coach in the team. And I think that's absolutely critical as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to your point that when we are considering, what makes a good leader in IT,
Mm,
I think it really is what you're talking about. It's that collaborative effort
yeah.
because if not, how will you know what your employee want and how to create a good experience for them if you're not collaborating with them?
Yeah.
You can only make assumptions. But so how do you think a leader should approach that collaboration in order to balance the like give the people what they want, but also be the leader that does what's right for the company?
Yeah. It is a delicate balance. And I think it's easier said than done. It's what we all know, which is listen more than you talk. And it's interesting when you get into these meetings and these workspaces and these brainstorming sessions, how many leaders talk too much.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why I say it's
yeah.
hard because
No, it's true.
you see the whole picture, and it takes self-discipline and self-control to hold yourself back. Let your team discover it because they're going to come up with ideas you didn't think of. You think you have all the answers
Yeah.
sometimes, and you don't. And I think that's also indicative of the time, this rapid changing, rapid evolution of the technology. There's no way that one person knows everything that's going to happen and can make those good decisions. You need to listen to your team. Let them feel empowered to make decisions. Make sure they don't feel, you know, pushed in a box
Like
or held back.
micromanaged. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, another if we play to the FIFA analogy a bit more, and we'll stop with this one because I'm sure people are like, this is just being overused." But like a great coach will watch game tape with their team, and we're not saying that like okay, like the coach is like listening to the team in that way. But I
Yeah.
think in a way, if we think about good leadership, it's like we can look at the progress of what we've done for the year and like
Yeah.
let's talk about it together and see how we can improve. So listening doesn't have to be being complacent or
Yeah.
just like letting other people
Yeah.
tell you what to do, but I think it's working together.
It's funny, you touched on something I wasn't expecting at all. And it's so good because it's about celebrating your successes, and when you talk about winning a game, there's a celebration at the end of that,
Yeah.
jumping and hollering and cheering and patting each other on the back. And then the coaches, of course, analyzing the plays, what worked, what didn't, how did we win, all of this. And the good times and the bad. You got to analyze when you lose and find out why. And you
Right.
got to analyze why you won so you can double down. But let's bring that back to technology and technology leadership and what we're trying to accomplish here. Again, let's put this together with what we talked about earlier. Rapid changing technology. People are doing a lot of work. They're working on a lot of projects. So what tends to happen is, okay, cool, we finished that. Let's go to the next.
Right.
And they're not pausing to celebrate the success. And I think that's a good takeaway that I'm gonna share a lot more actually back when I
Yeah.
get back to the office. But
Yeah.
pause and celebrate success because the people who worked really hard to do that thing that you asked them to do or you all worked on together, they deserve that. At the end of the day, we're all human. We want to feel like we're doing good for whatever, and to pause and acknowledge that and celebrate that you succeeded gives you that job satisfaction. Leave with a smile on your face. Say, yeah, I nailed it.
That's
We
the-
nailed it.
That's a bare minimum, I think, of the employee experience. The word
Yeah.
empowered is thrown around, but really it's making your employees feeling seen and heard. And
Yeah.
if you don't pause to accomplish the wins and how rapidly changing this environment is, like, what are we doing it for?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
probably, I mean, I think back to, and if I could just imagine this, I'm not an engineer, but I probably think back to when, like, the first software was ever developed or
Mm.
something, and like when the computer was just first coming out, and like how long that process must have took, and how exciting that celebration like could have been, and
Yeah, yeah.
the pace has changed now though, and that is a
Oh, yeah.
concern, I think, where we just rapidly create and produce and produce and produce, and we never take a second to go, okay, let's celebrate, but also, why are we doing this?
Yeah,
How do you
yeah, yeah.
keep the why and the North Star at the front of center at your
Yeah,
organization?
yeah, that's the whole start with why.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek talks about that, wrote a book on it, and it's a great message. Know
Mhm.
why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that, again, comes back to the coach, comes
Yeah.
back to the IT leader. Make sure that every individual knows the importance of their piece
Mhm.
into the bigger picture. What does the bigger picture look like?
Mhm.
You're dealing with this thing, you're writing this piece of software, or you're spinning up these servers, or, you're securing it with these policies, et cetera. But how does that then fit into the big picture of
Mhm.
how the company succeeds, how we succeed as a team? Is just trying to score the goal. So the player on the field is just writing those security policies, and they don't always see how it contributes to the entire team and
The
to
big
the entire
picture.
organization, the big picture. Yeah.
Where are you currently at in your digital transformation journey in your organization? And what are, and be real, be vulnerable. It's within reason,
Yeah.
right? And that being said, where do you plan to go? What are your goals and the vision?
I have to be honest here. I've never really liked this word digital
Tell me
transformation.
why.
I know it's a buzzword. Again, it goes back to the buzzwords, and I don't
Right.
really like the buzzwords, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Ask 10 different people, what does digital transformation mean for you? And you're going to get 10, maybe 12 different answers
Yeah.
because somebody might have multiple. So it's more of a digital evolution, I
Okay.
like to say, because we've been transforming using technology
Mhm.
from the time that businesses started using technology.
Right.
Digital transformation started when the first PC hit a desk. Then it was connected to something and you got email, you got electronic mail.
Is it fair
It's
to say it's a legacy term at this point?
well, yeah,
Could it be? I don't know.
it's a great sales term,
Right, right,
transform your business with
right,
digital revolution
right,
or
right,
whatever.
right,
And
right.
those are the things I steer away from.
Yeah.
I just try to be more tangible,
Okay,
try
yeah.
to be more realistic and speak the language that people appreciate
Right,
and the normal human interaction,
right, right.
and leave out the corporate speech more.
So evolution meaning like it's not about, well, that's actually funny that you say that, because that's why the podcast is called Work Reborn.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because evolution means like something has shifted or changed. It's not
Right.
necessarily entirely new, but it's gone through a progressive stage from one use case or like state of being to another. And I
Yeah.
think that's my take on it. But what do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think Work Reborn is like could that align with the idea of digital
Yeah.
evolution?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Reborn is talking about a significant moment of change,
Mhm.
and this certainly is that. The birth of AI. Let's not go into the matrix and everybody gets scared, but it is, though,
Yeah.
that revolution, that evolution. Okay, we'll call it transformative,
Mhm.
but I just see that. Again, you were talking about IT leadership, be
Mhm.
anticipating, almost
Yeah.
having foresight of what's happening. And that's where we are with this digital transformation. It's how these technologies are evolving. Now, how can we benefit from them? And it's a constant, it's what makes working in IT exciting, because it is an ever changing journey
Yeah.
into doing cool new things faster. And I think, I work for a law firm. So this digital transformation, this digital evolution, we have seen this in what seems to be even small things that had big changes. So
Mm.
if you go back to a classic picture of a lawyer who has a big stack of documents and they've got 6 different pens, a red pen, a blue pen, and a
Yeah.
highlighter, and they're flipping through these documents and they're highlighting and they're scratching, and then they hand that off to somebody
Yeah.
who's going to go now and type that all up in a new document. Now they're doing that on their iPad.
That's
They
amazing.
have it directly. That is evolutionary
Mm.
for them. This
Talk to
is
me about the intake process too, because I know like that is a very, especially in a law firm, like having somebody, accept a call,
yeah,
write down notes, put them in a
yeah,
CRM,
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
else answer them. Like, is that something that you guys have been using AI for, like as a use case to like help or?
We are getting there.
Yeah.
For a law firm, using AI is a really big challenge
Right.
for a couple of reasons. Mostly it's data privacy, going back to what we talked about at the beginning. And in the past, we had our clients give us what they called no cloud clauses, which means that none of their files, none of their data could be hosted in a cloud solution somewhere. It had to be on-prem. And it took many, many years and evolutions, even of the technology with, bring your own encryption keys and a lot of things that prove the security that the clients finally allowed it. Well, guess what they have now? No AI clauses. So now we're getting many clients who are saying, you are not allowed to use our data for any AI.
Okay.
And that is a blanket statement that is really difficult to address. So what we're working through now is, what does that actually mean? Does that mean we can't use your data to train an AI? And going through all the different variations of what does AI actually mean. So
Yeah.
onboarding is also challenging. Our internal general counsel is there to protect the firm, and there are a lot of hoops to jump through in order for us to adapt and adopt these new technologies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very fair assessment. And I think as a good leader, you should, you're doing the right thing by trying to come to a solution where all parties are happy with it. But of
Yeah.
course, it's protected, because at the end of the day, it's all about the data.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not protected, and like, people are struggling to figure out like how we move through that, then, you're kind of stuck at a standstill. But
Yeah.
what excites you about, you talked a little bit earlier about, yeah, things are always changing, but let's say in a positive lens, you are able to go through those obstacles and you're able to evolve. Like, what excites you about the potential of that for your organization?
AI is very exciting because mostly it's the investigative work that it's doing for you. The speed at which we can get direct answers is helping us to evolve so much faster, and we're going to see that again in the legal community, where it may take hours and hours and hours of manually sifting through, or searching through documents and being able to just write an elaborate prompt and have that answer in seconds is that's
Mind-blowing.
transformative. It
Yeah.
is. It is, absolutely, because then that frees up time to do more creative work. It frees up time to do more, we'll call it intelligent work, really thinking, okay, now what's next? And just really expanding your mind a lot more. There's the balance, right? We
Right.
talk about how using AI, you're starting to lose maybe investigative skills as well. And then you start to get this atrophy of knowing even how to do research. So
Yeah.
again, it's challenging yourself to not fall into a trap of go the easy route always.
Well, I really enjoyed this conversation,
Me too.
Paul. Thank you so much for coming by to the
Thank you for
podcast.
inviting me.
If anyone is interested in learning more about our Work Reborn research, where we interviewed over 600 senior IT leaders about just a few of the topics that we've talked about today, make sure you check it out. Download it via the link in the description below. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, check out the QR code on the screen somewhere over here, scan it, and grab yourself a copy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Work Reborn, powered by Lenovo. Lenovo is turning readiness into reality, empowering people, technology, and businesses to move forward together. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Apple or Spotify to continue the conversation on how we're bringing new life to the modern workplace. Thanks for watching.
Lenovo.